G'day and good morning and welcome to the channel. In today's video I'm going to demonstrate how to get those smooth out of focus backgrounds that you often see in these images. I'm going to show you how to get completely out of focus backgrounds and backgrounds that include a little bit of habitat, and I'll show you exactly how to do that today. If you're interested to know more about out of focus backgrounds, I did a complete video above that you can click on where I go into the key factors that dictate how you get a smooth background. Today's video though is in the field, and I'm lucky to have some very friendly robins that will help us today, and I'll show you how I go through the steps of achieving these photos from beginning to end. Hopefully you'll find that interesting. I just want to stress that this demonstration I'm giving today is sort of a perfect example. I realise birds aren't this tame usually and won't perform like these ones are about to, but just understand the technical aspects that you can transfer this out into the field and to other areas and get the same sort of backgrounds. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to need to get these backgrounds is a telephoto lens. You can't really shoot birds unless you've got a telephoto lens. It narrows our field of view, brings the birds in closer and makes for a pleasing image. So you have to have one. I would recommend probably 300mm or greater. This lens I have here is a 400mm 5.6, so it's a fairly affordable Canon lens, a beginning lens. I did do a review on this lens if you want to view it. So we want to demonstrate that you don't need the most expensive gear. I do have a 500 f4 which I will pull out and show you the difference, but in today's video I want to demonstrate using this affordable lens because I know more of you will have this type of lens. So with the camera, it doesn't matter too much, to be honest. It's the lens that's really important. The camera obviously helps, but I would highly suggest investing in a good lens and then upgrading the camera later on. In today's video I'll be using a Canon 5D Mark IV, which is a full frame camera, and I'll be shooting at 400mm focal length. So once you've got your lens and you've got your gear, the next thing is to isolate your subject. So I harp on about this all the time, and it's really important. So I'm going to show you what I mean by isolating your subject and making sure that there's nothing behind. So how I'm going to do that is I've got this nice little rock shelf here behind me, and you can see there's nothing directly behind it. So if a bird lands on the edge of this rock, there's nothing directly behind it, which is good, what we want. But there is some grasses just a little bit further back, and those won't go fully out of focus, and they will be in our background and give us a bit of habitat and some layers to our image, and that's what we're going for. So this is the location that I'm going to use to begin with. So we're going to get some robins on this ledge here and see what sort of shots we can get. So we'll set up the camera and we'll get into it. Okay, so the other important thing is to get eye level, and I mention this all the time. As you can see, I'm down low and this is about the right level to get the nice shots. Okay, now that we're set up, we need to set our exposure. So to do that, I actually shoot in manual mode. There's no right or wrong way. You can shoot in AV or manual, and I will do a video later on explaining the difference. But for me, I shoot in manual. So I've currently got changeable light, but it's somewhat overcast. So if it's overcast, I'll generally set the ISO to 1600. That's my starting point on this camera in low light. And then I'll do a aperture of 7.1. We need to adjust our shutter speed. And this is often the point that people get confused with manual mode and they're not sure what shutter speed to set to get the correct exposure. You may not be aware, but on cameras you have an exposure meter, and you can see here how it goes from -3 to +3. And so -3 means it's 3 stops underexposed and 3 stops over. In the middle it's telling us that that is the correct exposure based off the setting that you have. I have an evaluative reading, which means it takes the whole scene into consideration to give us the correct exposure. So now all I need to do is adjust the shutter speed. You can see here when I depress the shutter, it's telling me that I'm a 1/3 of a stop over, which is kind of exactly where I want. As you can see, as I adjust the shutter speed, this will move. So we're now underexposed and we're now overexposed. So we just need to dial that shutter speed in to get us to around the exposure that we want. Now to test that, to see if it's accurate, is we take a test shot and we check the histogram on the back of the camera. So we'll do that. So you can see the test shot. We can probably push that to the right a little bit more, but our shutter speed's reasonably high, so I'd actually prefer an aperture of f8 to give us a bigger depth of field. So I'll quickly change that and change our shutter speed, and we'll take a shot. So we're currently at 400th of a second, f8, ISO 1600. Histogram's looking pretty good. So those are the settings I would ultimately go with, and you can adjust those to whatever you want. If you want more depth of field, if you want a high shutter speed, that's the beauty of manual, you can change whatever you want. Okay, now that we have our settings dialed in, we can finally take a photo. Flame robin here, female. So she lacks the colour of the male. But I don't have really good shots with females, so I'm very happy with this at the moment. Oh, that's a nice pose. Okay, so I just want to explain how the aperture can change how out of focus your background is. So at the moment we're at an aperture of 7.1 and you can see that this green background is out of focus. I'll show you what it actually is. Alright, so the background is this grassy stuff. The foreground is obviously the rock. Now with the aperture we have now of 7.1, the depth of field is quite narrow and you can see that just the rock's in focus but the grass is out of focus. Obviously as we move the focus point, so now our depth of field is this grass area and the rock's out of focus. So to increase that depth of field we need to change this aperture number. So if I change it, have a look at the background and what happens to it. So they go to 18. You can see now we're still focused on these rocks, but the background's a lot more in focus than it was because our depth of field is larger. And that's all because of this aperture number. So you can sort of change the look of your images based off the aperture. Just be aware though, as you change your aperture number, you'll need more light, and I would generally suggest having that at around 7.1 or 8 to get the sort of nicer shots. Okay, so I've put the 500 on in the same spot. We'll see what the shots look like. So I think it's really important that I show you these 4 photos that I've taken all from the same place, with the same camera, same settings, but 4 completely different looking photos. So this first photo, I was standing up pointing towards the ground. We had a little Jackie Winter. As you can see, we just have no separation whatsoever. Because of the steep angle that we're at, we just can't get that separation and the background's too close, so we don't get a smooth background. This next shot, the bird was too far away, so the further away the bird, the bigger our depth of field. So it just wasn't close enough, so I just couldn't create that smooth out of focus background. This next one, the bird's up in the tree and it's got branches coming everywhere, and again, doesn't matter what we do, we can't get a smooth background because of all the branches around the bird. And the fourth one, really terrible image, I've actually had to shoot up into the tree, into the sky, so we've got sky background, we can hardly make out the bird, we've got a branch coming through it, it's just not a pleasing photograph at all. 4 photographs that don't look very good using the same camera. If you compare those 4 to some of these others that we were able to catch this morning by just following those keys, a big difference, and just goes to show that simply being aware of what you're doing, where the bird is, you can create substantially better photographs. You can see this rock here, there's nothing directly behind it, and in the background is grass. So if I was to focus on this with the 500mm lens, we'll have a look what happens. Okay, so at 7.1, aperture of 7.1, now if I was to focus on the grass in the background, so that's the grass background as you can see. It's a fair distance away, but if we focus on the rock, it throws that right out. You see that's how we've got that out of focus background, but that's only because that background is a fair distance away. Well, what a fun morning that was. We took lots of photos. I hope you enjoyed them. Let me know below which one was your favourite. I really hope you saw today how you go about achieving those out of focus backgrounds, whether it be the completely smooth or the ones with a little bit more habitat. Ultimately, you have the creative ability to create whatever photos you want. That's one of the real highlights of bird photography, is that you can do it in any way that you please. So just make sure you got that lens, make sure your eye level, make sure your aperture's set, and just get out there and have fun. The more you do it, the better you'll get and the more you'll understand. If you want to see more of these videos, maybe hit the subscribe button, give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Again, leave comments below, I'll answer every single one of them. I had a lot of fun. Thank you for coming along with me. Until the next video, bye for now, take care. See ya.